Cafe. My name is Belinda Dubston, and it is always wonderful to connect with you and work with the I Ching together as a community. Right, before we get stuck into this week's I Ching forecast for the week commencing the 8th of September 2025, we look back to last week. We had Hexagram 53 development, the gradual unfoldment of the marriage, a long-term process of it, improving things and moving to a new place and becoming a beacon of light to others. And we had that little wild goose making its way towards the mountaintop and taking a little bit of a breather on the shore, reaching a place of rest before the chance to advance and push on again, and realizing this is not a comfortable place, but it's a place to rest as we then move and push for the summit. Plus, we had Hexagram 37, the family, calling our attention to the communities, the families, the work families, the home families that are part of our focus and attention. So how did that work for you? Where were you, the wild goose, having gone on a journey and reached a place on the shore, right, realizing there's so much more to do, but here's a place where I've got somewhere, it's uncomfortable, and I might look a little silly because I don't know everything, I don't have all the expertise, but I can now push on when I'm ready. Working with this idea of long-term development of the marriage, of building something over the long term, and the family, the community, the people that we are part of, the people we live and work with. What came up for you working with this I Ching energy this past week? I also had an interesting experience of working with these hexagrams with a project I'm working on where it's out of my comfort zone, and I had to accept that I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to keep moving forward slowly and slowly and slowly, developing as I go. So I was wild goosing with you this week on the shore. Plus, I had 3 family events all on one day at the tail end of the week. And I had family abounding. And sometimes it's not necessarily that there's a drama in the family that you have to deal with. It's just about where your attention and your time is going and what's important for the week. So where was your family, your work family, your home family calling your attention? And where was the long-term process calling you to be the wild goose and making your way to the summit? Please do share if anything came up for you this past week. Okay, remember, if you haven't yet done so, go and check out the monthly overview, calling our attention to putting in place limits and boundaries, okay, working with that energy at this time, and some changing lines for us to work with. So go and tune into that energy and work with that. Okay, this week's I Ching forecast. What is the I Ching asking us to pay attention to more than anything else as we head into this week? Well, our first hexagram is hexagram 41, decrease. Now, before you say to yourself, oh no, why not increase? Okay, so the hexagram decrease, right, when we look at the structure, we have mountain at the top trigram, and we have lake on the bottom. And you can visualize that the mists of the lake are evaporating and moving up to the mountain, where we are then nourishing the mountain side with these mists from the lake. So the lake is reducing on the bottom, but the mountain is benefiting. Okay, what is reducing on the inner is benefiting the outer. It takes us on a journey of learning what it means to decrease one thing in favor of another, and understanding, making sure that we are not increased at someone else's decrease, okay, and we are not decreased at someone else's increase. So there's this whole process of things moving. Where the water, the nourishment is sitting, is moving from the lake, so the level is dropping, and the mists are going up to the mountain. But we also know from science, the water cycle, that at some point condensation happens. And what happens, right? The water will come back down into the lake. That's how I'm telling myself the story. So when we work with decrease, we work with, on many different levels, understanding what it is we need to cut back and reduce. Okay, where do we need to be active participants in decreasing what is unnecessary, what's excessive, what's peripheral? And it's about that laser beam focus, right? Bringing ourselves back to what's really important. So this week might be, for you, a great week in cutting back unnecessary expenditure. Or it might be that you experience decrease financially. In other words, lots of bills going out the bank and the new money not yet coming in. Okay, so your experience might be decrease of the balance of the bank, okay, or the cash in your reserves, all right? And so we realize and we think about two things. Where does that decrease? And I'm using the finance as an example. We can apply this concept across every aspect of life. Where is that decrease? Unnecessary outflows we need to block. Okay, wasteful expenditure, excessive, unnecessary. And where are we investing in the future? It's the difference between having those lots of subscription accounts that just churn through our bank accounts and just take, and we don't use them, we don't get value out of them, versus we are buying a piece of equipment that's going to give us some return, right, in the production line. And so we think about the same amount of money we're spending, right, one for the other, but they give different results. Decreasing our cash to invest in the future is a very different thing to just having the cash go out. So we think about that, and we can then apply that concept of decrease into everything else. Where do we need to make a decrease in the amount of attachments, wasteful energy, unnecessary social engagements, unnecessary processes of entanglements with other people? Where is our energy dissipated in lots of things? Okay, where do we have lots of things we've started, we haven't finished, so we have all our energy dissipated? And what do we need to do to bring it all back? What do we need to put down in order to pick up something more meaningful for us? So when we work with this hexagram, it's a powerful enabler. Okay, when you look at it first, you think, oh, the bank account. Okay, all right, what does that mean? But what we can do is we can strategize and work with this hexagram. And we can really use it to say, actually, where are those unnecessary outflows in cash, in time, in energy, in drama? Okay, where are those taking place? And what do we need to do to get right back to the core? Really get back to what's really, really important. It's a powerful way of bringing our focus back, being laser beamed, okay, and focusing on what's important and cutting out, blocking the things that are taking energy from us, in whatever form of energy that is. Okay, 2 changing lines this week in the 2nd and the 6th position. All right, and both of them are beneficial lines. Isn't that wonderful? Both of them are teaching us something about decrease and increase. Okay, so position 2. What this line talks about is learning how to increase others without being decreased. Okay, so when we look at this line, our first lesson of the week is understanding that when we make sacrifices and we give and we commit to other people or to situations, what's important for us to learn is how to increase those people and situations without being decreased by them. In other words, making an unnecessary sacrifice. And the way that we deal with this is we don't head out and go and action and do and carve out and push forward, is that we stay steadfast and centered and balanced, and we look for ways of how to help others, help a situation, bring benefit to others without being decreased by that benefit. Okay. This may or may not apply for you, but many people have the challenge of they make sacrifices for others to help others, but they are diminished in return from those sacrifices. That is not the idea behind making a sacrifice. When we make a sacrifice, we let go of the lower item to get the benefit of the higher item. Okay, but when we have a reduction and we don't have the increase, the higher increase, the mist on the mountain on the top, it's not in balance. It's not in the way. So we look to how can we help others? How can we help situations, but not being decreased by that help? This is part of the lesson, part of the learning. And I affirm that part of something that you are grappling with this week comes back to this kind of nitty-gritty issue of understanding how to increase others without being decreased. Okay, that is the lesson we're here to learn as we start off the week. And then in line 6, we have the other way of thinking about this, which is learning how to be increased without decreasing others. Okay, so one is line 2, learning how to increase others without being decreased, and line 6 is learning how to be increased without decreasing others. Okay, so 2 facets we are learning this week. Both of them are positive blessings, by the way. These lines, if we work with the wisdom of the I Ching, what the superior person does in the situation, what the master does, is we get blessings. Okay. So with this line, equally true, it's a line of blessings. And what we need to do is we need to learn how to be increased without decreasing others, right? Paying attention to understanding that it's okay to receive as long as it doesn't come to the detriment of others. And if we can bear this in mind and we can focus on this idea, what it brings energy, blessings, and helpers, people who are ready to support what it is you're trying to do. And so line 6 is often about where you're wanting to do something wonderful for other people, where you're wanting to give and put back as you are generating wealth and learning and knowledge, is that you're putting that back and you're being increased by the fact that you are increasing others. There's a cumulative exponential benefit of I get helped and you get helped. And in that process, there is an energy that flows because we are giving and we are being increased by the giving and others are being increased, and we create this virtuous cycle. Okay, so both changing lines are bringing us facets for us to pay attention to. Ideas of decrease, increase, sacrifice, benefit, gain. Be discerning. Have your radar focused into your interactions this coming week, into the situations that are in front of you, are critical for you, are online, or part of your world focus, and think about how you can apply these two principles into the mix. I know that coming up this week, I'm working on a performance reward system, the design of it, and I'm like, this hexagram couldn't have been better timed to help me think about the principles of being increased without someone being decreased, and them being increased without me being decreased. Okay. So let's work with that this week as we develop and refine our understanding of the movement of energy from the lake to the mountain back to the lake, the flow of life, the water cycle. All right, so that leads to a second hexagram, an outcome hexagram, and this week it is hexagram 24, the return, the turning point. Okay, all right, coming back, turning back to what is important, to what was good, to what is valuable, and to a better time. Structure of the hexagram, all yin lines, one yang line coming in the bottom, the light coming back in. But it's early days. Okay, so it talks about how that light comes in, the turning point from the dark night into the light. All right, the hibernating bear slowly starting to move because he senses the coming of spring. And so we work with this idea of the turning point, of things coming back to a better time, of reaching a turning point in our thinking, in an issue, perhaps what was raised in decrease, all right, something moving from a challenge to a much better time, but it's early days, it's just starting to move, just starting to come back, and us moving forward slowly, lumbering slowly and wriggling out of that cave like the bear. And understanding that this might also be going back to something of the past, going back to something that worked, going back to an old job, going back to an old town. What might this turning back, returning back to something mean for you in particular this week? Right, we are all bears in the cave, right? We are learning how to move forward and sensing the change of the seasons, realizing that light is coming back, which is wonderful, and working with this very deep and profound idea of being increased without decreasing others, and increasing others without being decreased. Let's see where the week leads us and where our insights go as we work with this profound idea. Thank you so much for being here with me. If you like this episode, found it valuable, a thumbs up, a like would be great. And of course, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button so that you get the episodes, the weekly ones and the monthly ones, straight into your app. The little bell notification on YouTube means you get a little alert. And of course, if you're on the podcast, hit that follow button to get the same. Thank you so much for being here with me. I wish you a wonderful week, and I'll see you soon.